All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar. Today we'll be talking about how to transform your retargeting strategy without third-party cookies. So you have myself, Lindsay Mora, Digital Marketing Lead at Silvertech. And then here with me is Hannah Sabo, Senior Media Manager at Silvertech. So before we get into things, let's take a quick poll. So how many of you are currently running retargeting campaigns? If you could go ahead and answer in the poll that pops up on your screen. Give people another 30 seconds or so to submit your answer. All right, let's see. I'm just going to lean in. Yeah, so just leaning in to look at the answers, looks like a good portion of you are currently running retargeting, and then a handful of you are not currently. So, good mix of people here. So thank you for submitting your responses. So, yeah, I mean, the reason why most of us are here today is because, either you are still currently running retargeting or it has in the past been a key part of your marketing strategy, and for a good reason. Retargeting has been one of those tried and true strategies for marketers for many years. I mean, Hannah, you and I have used remarketing and retargeting strategies for like over a decade. So, and as you can see here from the stats, it is proven to be very effective. Retargeting ads are, proven to be 10 times more effective than your standard display ad, and also have a really high engagement with 90% higher click-through rates than, again, your standard display. So it's proven to be effective for a long time, which is why so many of us are currently using it in our tactics. And not only does it drive strong engagement, but it also helps with those conversions, like that closing of the loop to get people to take that action you want them to take. So has proven to increase conversion rates by 1.5 times. So yeah, the reason why we're all here is, because it is a big part of what we do on a day-to-day. And, obviously it is changing and we want to kind of all learn about that. So just to give you a lay of the land of what we're going to talk about today for our agenda, first we're going to define what retargeting and cookies are, and then also how they're related. And then we'll discover what's happening to the third-party cookies and the impact it's going to have on retargeting. And then finally, we're going to explore alternative strategies that you can try out in your marketing. So first of all, what is retargeting? Just let's get back to basics for a second. So retargeting is when someone visits your site, they then exit the site, and then you serve them with an ad. So a retargeting ad. And a lot of times these ads have very personalized messaging, sometimes acknowledging that, hey, like we saw you came to our site, or still looking for this product or service, that type of messaging. And again, it's really meant to close that loop, like get people to come back that we already know are interested in our product, our brand, our services. And again, close that loop, get them to convert.
Yeah. Lindsay, so can you kind of give us an example, high level of retargeting?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think the easiest example is in like online retail. It can be used obviously across multiple industries, which I'm sure many of you, come from various industries. Online retail is a good, like easy example to give. If I'm looking for like, it's almost springtime, I'm looking for a new lawnmower. I might go to Home Depot and look at different lawnmowers. But I'm probably not going to make a purchase in that first initial visit. I'm probably going to do some research, maybe then go about my day because I don't have time to make the purchase right then and there. I may compare against like Lowe's and visit their site. I may then go in store. So there's a lot of things that can happen after that first initial visit to the website. But then throughout that decision process for me, I may then get a display ad across various websites from Home Depot saying like, hey, we saw that you looked at these products. Like, want a 10% off coupon, or, want to, complete your purchase. You might see something in your Facebook feed. So there's a lot of different avenues of where you might see that. That's a really basic example, but retargeting, the beauty of it is it can be used across any industry, really. So it's very universal in that sense, and again, can be highly effective. And then what are cookies? So aside from these delicious treats you see on the screen, the cookies we're referring to are files on websites that are sent to your browser, and they help websites remember user preferences like, your password and things like that. But it also allows us as advertisers to target people with relevant ads. So it gives us that data, right? And then there's also different types of cookies, just like how there's like a sugar cookie versus another type of cookie. So when we're talking about these files on websites, there are many other different types of cookies. So the most common ones that are used, especially in marketing, are first and third party. So first party are cookies that are created and used on that single domain. So it's the website that you're visiting, and they're mainly used for streamlining the user experience, and they're not shared across websites. So, in the example I mentioned, it might be remembering your password or the language selection that you made for future visits that you may come to the website for, or it may remember items that you added to your shopping cart. And then there's third party, and that's kind of why we're all here today, right? So third party cookies are ones that are stored under a different domain than the one you're currently visiting. And they're usually created through scripts placed on the page, which load code from the third party. So these cookies are accessible by any website that loads the third party server's code. So this is a really common practice with programmatic vendors, for example, and it allows to share that data and track users between sites and not just solely relying on that single website's data, and allows us, again, to display more relevant ads. So what is happening to the third-party cookie? I'm sure you've heard about this for many years, the death of the third-party cookie. Well, it has officially arrived. So to give a little bit of background, back in 2022, Google first announced it would be phasing out these third-party cookies on Google Chrome. And they said that they were going to start this process in 2023. So it has been talked about for a few years. We've been all preparing for it probably. And that phase out has officially begun of this year. And, true, what happens in technology and things like that, things might take a little bit longer. So it did for that case with Google. So they began the rollout in very early January of this year. And we've already started to see that impact. But, this isn't a new concept. Other browsers have already been doing this for many years, including Safari, Firefox, and Edge, which are also very common browsers that people use. So this really isn't a new concept, but it is significant because Google Chrome is very widely used. And this is kind of like the end of it all because they were kind of the last ones to be rolling this out. So it is very significant. And where it presents a challenge is, with retargeting without third-party cookies, is that many advertising channels like Google utilize those third-party cookies to retarget their website visitors. So that's what they're relying on to do that retargeting. Now, not all channels do rely on that, but that is pretty significant because just like many people use Google Chrome, many people are using Google Ads as like the backbone of their advertising strategy. So it is very significant in that sense.
I think the biggest question here is why. Lindsay, why is Google doing this to us?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, I think it all ties back to privacy. There's obviously over the years has been a big push toward this just in general, but especially in the digital space. And, people want their user behavior online being protected and not kind of manipulated in a way. And with the rise of GDPR and CCPA and a lot of other regulations, that have come out and are going to continue to come out, privacy is at the forefront, and it's at the forefront of how these tech giants are developing their programs. And this also ties back to Google's initiative around Google Analytics 4, which is very privacy centric. And this also was kind of tied very closely to them in their planning for the death of the third party cookie. So I think it all goes back to privacy in the end. Okay, so let's take a pause there. And I'd love to get kind of a gut check from everybody on how prepared do you feel for these changes with the third-party cookies and how it'll be impacting your marketing? And it's okay to say if you have no idea and you just need help, because I know a lot of people are in that boat, but that's why we're here today. All right, I'm just going to lean in to get the answers. So a good amount of people are saying that they feel prepared. Some are saying they feel like somewhat prepared, like so-so, and then some are like, I need help. So that's great, a great balance here. And again, that's why we're here today, because we think that it's a topic that a lot of people love to talk about, but also like, let's talk about some valuable strategies that we can implement and kind of develop that path forward. Awesome. So next, I'm going to hand it off to Hannah, and she's going to talk about some of those alternative strategies that we can start exploring.
Yes. So awesome. Let's get into some of the meat. Let's talk about some ad targeting. So we're going to go through several different alternative solutions here. We've just kind of picked out a few. This isn't just everything you could possibly do. These are just kind of a handful of things that we kind of picked out. There's a lot of things we can still do, even with the death of third-party cookies. So these are just some alternative ways that we can try to still hit a very quality audience. So the first option here is non-cookie based retargeting. So there are a handful of channels and platforms that have already taken some steps to create ways where they can retarget without utilizing third-party cookies. So some of these are like programmatic platforms like StackAdapt, which is a really good DSP. They've already taken some steps to move away from that cookie-based model. So they do have some offerings that people can take advantage of to still retarget without having to rely on those third-party cookies. Another example is Meta with their Facebook conversion API. Essentially, they set this up a few years ago, I believe, at this point, where they can just send data back through that API without having to rely on those third-party cookies. So there are a handful of options out there that are not reliant on cookies, and more channels and platforms are developing those options. So I'm sure we'll continue to see more and more of those arise. Option number 2. So let's say that's not quite an option. It doesn't fit in your media mix. First-party data targeting within option number 2 is a great tactic. First-party data is those CRM lists you already have, that data you're already collecting. So this data is going to be right at your fingertips. This data is, customer information you might have, and this you can leverage within your marketing strategy to really drive people down that funnel. So utilizing your data to actually target people with your ads is a great tactic to utilize. And we love first-party data, and first-party data is going to become a big part of strategy moving forward throughout 2024 and on. Looking at our third option here, kind of rolling off of having some of your own data, a great way to utilize some of that data is through lookalike targeting based on an uploaded list. So one way that you can utilize some of that data is uploading that customer list you may have, and you can target those people on a lookalike basis. Essentially, this means you will have a group of people that may already be customers you have, and then we're going to plug that into a platform, upload that list, and then we're going to get people that are very similar to those people. And those similar people are going to be highly likely to take the same types of actions that your customers already have because they're similar to them. So this is a great way to still target a very high quality audience without having to rely on those third-party cookies. So you're utilizing data you're already collecting, data you might already have, and creating a new kind of audience type around those lookalikes.
And Hannah, just to get a little clarification, so with these CRM lists, whether they're using that first party or they're using the upload and it's trying to go after the similar audiences based on the CRM, they would essentially upload that list into the ad channel, right? Whether it's
Correct.
Google or Facebook.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Yep. So most people will be able to upload those lists within their ad channels, and then they'll be able to utilize them within their targeting campaigns. Awesome. And then this last option here on our alternative solutions for ad targeting is contextual targeting. I love contextual targeting. It is a great way to really highly target your ads. Essentially, contextual targeting allows you to take some specific keywords, some specific phrases, and target articles or content that talk about those certain specific types of things. So this is really highly relevant to target that specific type of content, what your user's doing, and placing your ad right next to something that's highly relevant and going to keep your audience a little more lower funnel than it would be if you were just kind of very high level broad targeting somebody. And then as you can see here, we do have some examples. So we pulled some examples. You'll see right here in this kind of blue chart area under keyword rule targeting. Some of this we did pull from StackAdapt, which is a DSP. You'll be able to kind of look under the hood of what is in the ad platform and how this actually works. So there's several different ways you can go about contextual targeting, but for the sake of this example, this is just an easy example here. So you'll see in this screenshot of the back end, you'll see we have a couple different rules set up. And essentially we have that rule 1 set up where we have keywords like cold season, cold, sore throat, cough. So those types of relevant keywords around somebody being sick. And then you'll also see in that second section right there in that and section, we're also looking for keywords around remedies and soothing and relief and keywords around that. So essentially what this keyword rule targeting is saying is I'm really looking for some content that is based on cold or flu, but also talking about remedies for that. So you'll see the ad example right next to it is looking at some fast relief. So for sore throat, lozenges. So having this ad right next to content that is already talking about somebody who may be suffering from a cold, maybe looking for some relief, is going to be highly relevant. Somebody looking at an article like this or a content piece like this is already going to be in that mindset of what content they're reading. So this ad is highly targeted towards them and incredibly relevant for them as well.
Great. And, StackAdapt is just one great example that we have here. They're kind of our vendor that does, is a DSP, like Hannah said, a demand side platform that you can do programmatic media buying, but there's a lot of other partners out there. And there's other avenues of doing contextual targeting, right, Hannah? So this is just one example and one platform that you can utilize. But we thought kind of a real example from the back end and then how it looks to the end user in terms of like where they're seeing those ads and like what those ads look like based on the targeting that's set up.
Awesome. And then going into another alternative solution, data collection. So moving a little bit away from those audience type targeting, let's talk about data collection. Because while the mindset of everyone is now very privacy focused, that doesn't mean data has no meaning. Data is still very meaningful. So the first thing here is leveraging information your site visitors and customers have already provided and are willing to provide to you. This is so huge. That information you already have that's already at your fingertips is so incredible and so important, and you need to make sure that we're utilizing that data. So one example of that, of course, is your CRM data, which we kind of mentioned before. But with this data collection and CRM data, we want to make sure that we are keeping that contact information clean and ready to go, so that we can take that data and understand that data and really put that thought into our strategy and understanding who they are, what they're doing, and we can utilize that throughout different aspects of our media plan. And not only with the CRM data, but also including surveys and poll data. That data is data you're collecting as well. And that's also very important data. You can be getting information from your customers about multitude of different things. So you want to make sure that you're doing things to, get that data that people want to provide. If people want to work with you, they're going to want to give you some of that data, and we want to make sure that we leverage it as best as possible throughout our whole media mix.
Yeah, and Hannah, something that comes to mind too is it not just helps tell us how to target people, but also like what messaging will resonate with our customers. So it also kind of ties back to like your, how you can message things on your website, obviously in your ads, but then of course, as Hannah's talking about too, how we target people. So there's just a huge benefit to going after that data and having that connection with clients as well and customers, because people want to feel that with brands. There's so much information out there and so many competitors out there. So having that more personal touch and like showing that you care to like understand and like learn more about your customers can go a long way as well.
Exactly. And then just kind of looking at option number 2 here, kind of just rolls right off of what we were just talking about, is utilizing publicly accessible information, such as census data. Census data is a really valuable asset that you can utilize. It tells you a lot about your area, your target area, what people maybe like, how to best target them and market to them in your certain particular area. Another great tool is Google Trends. Google Trends is going to give us some great research around keywords, around topics, around understanding what people are looking for, what people are doing within the market. This is going to help us understand who our customer base is. What are these people interested? What are they doing? How can we get a little creative with their targeting? Especially without third-party cookies, how can we hit those people in different areas and different aspects of their life and what they're looking for and what they're interested in? Awesome. The next alternative solution is direct outreach. So enabling more direct contact and communication with your customers and prospects is incredibly important. And this is even more important nowadays with the high focus on privacy, the place we live in this world in 2024. People don't want their information to be just scrapped. They want to freely give it. So utilizing some direct outreach ways to connect with your audience and engage with them and create a loyal customer base is incredibly important. The first one here, email. Ensuring that you have a great email flow and a great email tactic within your marketing plan can be a great asset. Not only can email help you drive customers down the funnel, it can really help you engage with your customers that may be a little bit newer. It can really help you give your customers a taste of who you are and directly communicate with them through a great way and have multiple different touch points with them. Another way that we can connect with our audience, people may not think about this, is direct mail. Very old school, I guess we should say. Not really the top way that people will communicate with their audience in 2024, but direct mail is still a great tactic within your marketing strategy. It doesn't work for everybody, but there are some services and industries where direct mail is a great way to hit people where they are because you're mailing it directly to them. We don't want to overwhelm them, but there is a balance with direct mail that you can really personalize, hit your customer where they are, and be really focused on that customer and who they are to really hit them. And then the next solution here is text messaging. While lots of companies utilize text messaging, it's a great way to directly outreach to your customers. A lot of you'll think of like shops and e-commerce utilizes a lot of text messaging type services for discounts and all different kinds of things. But text messaging is a great way to really hit your customer where they are. And where are they? They're on their phone. Most people are on their phones most of the time. So a great way to connect with them is through that device. You're going to be creating so many different touch points and hitting them through right where they are, no matter where they are physically, is a great way to hit your customer. It's also a really way to really personalize and focus that message and make it very quality to that particular customer so they're continuously being engaged with you. Let's not overwhelm them and maybe send them too many, but there's a very good balance between creating that really great connection and passage through to your customer.
Yeah. And I think going back, like tying it into the data collection that we talked about before too, like utilizing that data to like Hannah's point, like personalizing it and creating that connection. And I think it's so interesting, like to see direct mail kind of like be back in kind of like when we're talking about all these digital strategies. But I think a lot of these things can have a place, maybe not for all of you that are here or every industry or every brand. And we're certainly not saying, oh, you need to do every single one of these things. You need to find like what's going to work for you, for your brand, and for your customers. What do you think that they'll respond best to? And maybe it's a one-off thing. Maybe it is a one-off like flyer that goes out. But just like everything else in digital, like people's inboxes are cluttered. There's a lot of ads out there. So it's just finding the right media mix at the right opportunity that's going to make the most sense and be effective and not have that direct mail piece maybe end up in the recycling, of course. But they all, could have their time and place. So it is just really interesting that things kind of make a comeback like that.
Yeah. And like anything within digital marketing or traditional marketing, we're always having to be flexible. Things change. So having a little bit maybe of a direct mail strategy can be great for your an additional tactic to your campaign as, third-party cookies are going away and retargeting is changing and there's different policies and different changes to different just everything in the aspect of the world.
Yeah. Hence why we're here today to figure out how to transform our strategies. Thanks, Hannah. All right. So just to conclude a little bit here, the biggest takeaway for me, at least, is, with marketing, we're very focused on being very relevant to our customers and not just like blasting messaging out to like everybody, but being, as relevant as possible. And the lesson here for me is that relevancy does still matter and it is still achievable. And I would even argue that although, that retargeting that we talked about, the traditional that we've done for so long based on a lot of these third-party cookies on website visitors has been very effective. This is an opportunity to be even more relevant and utilize a lot of these great tactics that Hannah has laid out, the contextual targeting, leveraging more data collection on our customers, getting to know them better, and then using those lists in ad channels to target them or find other similar audiences to them. So I just think it creates so much more opportunity. And like Hannah said, the world is changing, the digital space changes constantly, and we're here to figure out how to transform that strategy continually, honestly. So I think this is a really exciting turning point. I'm glad Google and all the other browsers have pushed us in this direction because I think it will make our marketing even better in the long run. So before we completely conclude here today, just a little bit about who SilverTech is. So we are a full service digital experience agency. We've been creating digital customer experiences for our clients across many industries since 1996. And we offer digital marketing, website strategy, development, and design-based solutions. And we have over 90 employees in 2 US offices. So that concludes our webinar today. But before you hop off, feel free to submit a question in the chat. We'd love to hear from you all what challenges you may be facing and how we could help, have some conversation around that here. And then if we don't have time to get to everything, we'll be following up to answer all of your questions. So we'll try to answer as many as we can. And then feel free to scan this QR code and schedule a meeting with us. If you do, we will send you some cookies for you and your team, the real cookies, not the third-party files on the website, but we will send you some delicious cookies if you schedule a meeting with us. We can do just like a consultation, kind of a little discovery of what your retargeting looks like right now. We could do an audit. Even if you're not sure if you're running retargeting or not, we could kind of look at your entire, digital landscape and give you a roadmap. So there's a lot of options here. So feel free to contact us. But at this time, we'll start to take a look at the questions we have here. So just going to take a look at some of the ones that have been submitted so far. Let's see. So Hannah, this might be a good one for you. So someone asked, when will third-party cookies be gone completely? Because we mentioned that they're being phased out, but it is a phase out. So when do we expect them to be gone completely?
This is a great question because we all know sometimes Google likes to push things out, as Lindsay even went through in her slide. But we have already started to see the impact. As of January, we've seen about 1% of the cookies kind of disappear off of Chrome. As of right now, Google is saying 100% of the cookies will be gone by Q3 of 2024. So we kind of just need to keep our eyes on it. But we're definitely starting to see, even with that 1%, audiences starting to shrink a little bit, get a little bit smaller. But we're definitely keeping a close eye on things. And as of right now, we can expect that 100% of third-party cookies will be gone from Chrome by the end of the year.
Awesome. All right, let's see what else we have for questions. Okay, so someone has a question about how to run a programmatic campaign. That's a good question. I can kind of field that one. You can add Hannah if you'd like. So you want to find a DSP, a demand side platform like a StackAdapt, or there's many others out there. And again, that's something that we could help advise on. Again, they have different policies and different like spend minimums and things like that. But it's essentially another ad channel. It's like working in Google Ads or Facebook Ads Manager or LinkedIn, whatever it may be. It's just another ad channel. You can manage them yourself. You can work with a rep. You could work with an agency like us that helps with that. So there's a lot of different options, and there's a lot of things that can go under a programmatic campaign. There are, different ad formats like native ads, your standard display, and it does give you a lot more flexibility, like Hannah mentioned. The non-cookie based retargeting is the number one, but there's a lot of other benefits as well. That's not to say it replaces anything else you may be doing. It's a good supplement to, Google Ads and the tried and true of like a search campaign, of course, and other display efforts you run. But that's how you would go about doing that, is doing it through like one of those platforms. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Let's see what else we have here. Okay, so someone asked, what's the difference between remarketing and retargeting? So these terms are often used interchangeably, which is fine. In this case, we've primarily been talking about retargeting because we're talking about an ad. So targeting people with a digital display ad. So in that case, we're calling it retargeting. Remarketing sometimes is more of like a broader term but it's the same concept of like closing that loop, reaching out to people that may have visited your website and trying to like get them to convert or whatnot. Oftentimes remarketing is more on the email side of things, but also just kind of like more broadly. But retargeting is like specific to ads and how you're targeting people with an ad. Okay, I think we have time for a couple more. Let's see. Someone asked, how can I get started? Like, what should I start doing right now? That's a great question. Hannah, do you want to start?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is how to get started is what are you doing now in your strategy for retargeting? Do you know what you're doing? I think laying out what you already have in existence, if you have something, and making sure that you understand what that strategy is a great first place to start. And then from there, you can kind of take what you're doing and start re strategizing it into a new plan.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I would also go back to like the CRM
Hmm.
aspect that Hannah talked a lot about. It has a lot of value, and that really is the direction that everything's going in and like leveraging that first party data. So I would, focus on cleaning up CRM data that you have. I know that that is a pain point for many organizations because it can get a little like out of control. So just putting in some effort into like that cleanup and the overall maintenance of your database that you have, your CRM list, and then trying to leverage that more in like campaigns and things like that. But I think,
Hmm.
even before you go the ad route, like just looking at the cleanliness of your in-house list is
Hmm.
a good place to start as well. Awesome. So we'll take one more question. Let's see. Okay, so this person asked something that I think Hannah, you'll be interested in. I know is a concern for a lot of people. So this person said, "I'm in a highly regulated industry. Are there restrictions on retargeting?"
This is my favorite question.
I thought you might like it.
There are restrictions in some industries that are highly regulated, like healthcare or financial services. Yes, there's going to be some restrictions. Some of those restrictions are going to be based on the ad channel. So what Google has in their policy or what Facebook has in their policy. So some of that is going to be purely driven by the ad channel and what policies they have around it. There are some other things to keep in mind too, especially when it comes to retargeting and some things that are more sensitive and sensitive information. So you do have to be a little more careful and maybe stray away from certain things when you're in a regulated industry. But like we said, there's still a lot of options. And even if, with the death of third-party cookies, there's other options like contextual or lookalikes and things that we can utilize that can still really hit your focused target audience, even if you're in a highly regulated industry. You just got to play the game and follow all of those policies and just do your best to hit your target audience.
Yeah. And I think like obviously whatever industry you may be in, if it's highly regulated or not, like Hannah said, there's probably specific things you have to follow just like to be compliant within your industry. And then different channels have different restrictions as well. So like exploring other channels, like some are just more strict than others while you're still being compliant. So there are a lot of nuances with that with being in a regulated industry, but it's something we're accustomed to because a lot of clients with Silver Tech are in a various ones as well. So I know it's a hot topic for us too. So it's a great question. Thank you. Um, awesome. Well, that covers everything for us today. Thank you so much for joining. Again, we will be following up. So if there are any other questions or you'd like to schedule a meeting or just a basic consultation, we're here to help. But thank you all for joining us today. Have a great rest of your day.